Your folks been on strike? Some of you been on strike? This is the Labor Day podcast of the Jeffrey Luscombe podcast. My name is Jeffrey Luscombe. I'm a writer. I'm the author of Shirts and Skins and To Refrain from Embracing. I write about what it's like to grow up Gen X in the 70s and 80s without all the sugarcoating cute stuff. Right? What it was really like. And I grew up in a working class part of a working class town. We made steel. It was tough. And that's what I write about. And Labor Day, my latest novel, To Refrain from Embracing, the climax happens on Labor Day. Labor Day had an effect on me. It was all, the book is all set in the summer of 1977. And if you remember the summer of 1977, lucky you, you're one of the lucky ones. It was a pretty good summer. But the climax happens on Labor Day. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's something happens on Labor Day in my novel. But what it was like growing up, and because we were in a working part of town, our folks were in unions. And my mother was in the union, my father was in the union. Occasionally there were strikes. My father went on strike. He wildcatted one time when a whole plant walked out on their shift. And it was just a part of the environment that, a few of the kids, their dads would be on strike. And you would know this when you went to school that, Danny's dad's on strike, Kelly's mom's on strike. And it was just how we grew up of knowing this, and it's actually weaved into the fabric of, this neighborhood and this community, part of the working class that I knew and I write about. So what was Labor Day like when I was a kid? Well, first of all, for Gen X, and we always talk about this. We were left on our own, and I always call it, uh, it was benevolent. They had to work. They just didn't leave us because they disliked us. But all summer we're running wild, we're running feral, and a lot of us, me included, is that we had tents in our backyards. And from the time we were like 8, 9, 10, we would sleep in the backyard. It was often hot in the house. We'd have pals over, a couple of pals, and our folks just let us sleep in the backyard. So I always remember like Labor Day, part of it would be taking down this tent. Yeah, 8 years old, we were sleeping alone outside, which is a bad idea. Don't do it, but it's what we did. It's how we stayed cool. It's how we hung out with our friends. And so for me, Labor Day was taking down the tent that weekend. And on Labor Day, the day before school started, I would be dragged sometimes literally to the Hamilton Labor Day Parade, which I also write about in the new novel. And once I was actually on a float with my mom, with her steel fabrication plant, sitting on the float. I think I marched along my dad a little bit one time, and I mean young, like 4, 5, 6 years old. We would be part of this Labor Day parade. I don't know how much of it was just sort of like getting us ready for what they thought our lives were going to be, just like our grandfathers and great grandfathers of part of these steel mills and factories around Hamilton, Ontario, that eventually, we would just walk from the parade as little kids and right into the factories someday. And that's exactly what I did. After high school, I became a member in good standing of the Aluminum Brick and Glass Workers Local 260. And I worked in a factory for a couple of years before I went back to school. And I had a strike vote once. I really wanted to go on strike. I just thought this would have been fun to, I was young. I didn't have like kids and a mortgage or anything. I just thought time off, picket lines, it could be like a real cool experience. So we turned down the first offer, went for the final strike vote, but we accepted like a dime. They threw us a dime, and yeah. So they took it. So I was a little disappointed. I was never able to go on strike. But I was there a couple of years, went back to school, became an IT guy, systems engineer, systems analyst, and I gravitated towards factories. That I worked as an IT guy, as a systems engineer in factories like metal stamping, and in the first novel, Shirts and Skins, part of it is set in a metal stamping plant where the character Josh works. Um, and yeah, something happens there too. Something always happens in these books. Something always happens in Jeffrey Luscombe novels. Nothing ever goes easily, but when in life does it go easily? But yeah, so I was a member of a union, never went on strike. My folks both went on strike. Um, and sometimes in the Labor Day parade, half of our fathers would be on strike if one of the big plants went in. And it was always, as I recall, it was always led by the union that was on strike. Get the biggest applause. Yay! Whoever was on strike as the Labor Day parade starts off. But yeah, I would sit there, I would watch it. I was in it a couple of times. It was just a part of growing up where I was. Um, and it was okay. It was not a Santa Claus parade. There was no, candy canes, no candy. It wasn't what you'd call fun, but you could feel the unity. You could feel like something there when a lot of people, you know, like like people protest today, or they get together and they let their voice be heard. That's what democracy is, and there's a feeling of being a part of something very large, and so that was very exciting even as a child. So yeah, that was Labor Day for us. The tent goes down, the parade, and why it became the climax of my latest novel. Well, because it's a summer novel, it was a great place to end on Labor Day, and if it's set in Hamilton, the Labor Day parade. Um, so and there's always when you write and like there's a lot of stories where you have to have a reason for your characters to get together. And you'll often see anniversaries or parties or Christmas or that sort of thing where you get your characters together at some point, often at the end. Um, and I use Labor Day as that device. Yeah, where something happens, something not good, something not good happens a couple of times through the book. But that's life, and that's what I saw growing up. Yeah, I don't write romances. I don't write what I don't believe and didn't see, and I'm not going to make stuff up. And like I've said before, is that yeah, Gen X, we had this feral childhood. We drank from the hose, and we didn't come home to the street lights were on, and all that is true. And we were making our lunch at 7, and we were sleeping outside at 8 by ourselves in a tent in the backyard. This is all true, but there is a darker side to this, and I try to look at both sides. Yeah, that it was fun, but there were darker sides, and there was violence often, and there was between ourselves and other people, and there was abuse, and Gen X didn't have it easy. It wasn't all fun. There was difficulty there, and that's what I try to write about without all the sometimes Gen X can make it sound like it was paradise. This, of course, they would never want that for their kids, and I think they know that. I think they know the shortcomings of what it was like growing up feral um, now. But yeah, my novels, to refrain from embracing Shirts and Skins, both available. Fun thing too is that a few days after Labor Day, I was asked by Mount Sinai Indigo Bookstore to do a book signing on September 4th. They said, come on in, because in Shirts and Skins, part of the chapter is actually set at Mount Sinai. And so they said, come on in, sign some books. I'd love to have you. And I said, great, I'd love to do it. So I'm doing that next week. And it means a lot to me as well, because next door to Mount Sinai, it's on University, and there's a lot of hospitals there. And right next door to Mount Sinai is Princess Margaret. And I had cancer a few years ago. I haven't talked about it a lot here. I've talked about it other places, but I had cancer, so I spent some time at Princess Margaret. They were great. So it means a lot to me to go back there, sign some books, and yeah, so it'd be fun um, to do that and give a little back. But I might talk about that more at a podcast next week, what that's like, signings and that sort of thing. So Labor Day, tell me about your Labor Day. What was it like growing up? Was it was it like mine, or was it something different? Let us know. I always like to hear from listeners and readers, and it's part of the fun part about being an author. Like I said, not a lot of people know about this podcast. I don't really, uh, I, I don't publicize it much. Just sort of throw it out there. So at first it was just really an Easter egg for readers to maybe fall over, find because they like to know, where ideas come from or where certain stories are or how much of it is true. And, well, none of it really. It's all true. Every everything is true. The the events are fictional, and the people are fictional. But that's that's writing. So yeah, have a great Labor Day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take the tents down. No, don't leave your kids outside. Uh, but enjoy Labor Day, whether you're a, a blue collar, white collar, gig gig economy person. Uh, you deserve it. Enjoy your holiday, and that's it for me. Thank you.